According to a recent post from Esport Tales, if you are in Diamond, that means that as of July 2023, you are in the top 9.2% of players. Still though, you'd be surprised to hear that Diamond is the rank that many coaches believe that you actually start playing the game. In fact, before Diamond, many coaches will just give you the advice that you should just insta-lock Reyna and run it down until your mechanics improve. This is because gunplay is so important in Valorant that if your mechanics aren't there, you'll likely have a very hard time pushing into the higher ranks. However, because of this, many players that are approaching Diamond start to miss the full picture of the game. You can't just always do the same thing and expect it to work. You need to start thinking about why certain things work. In today's video, we're going to be teaching you how to do just that as we take a direct look at a Platinum 3 player and the mistakes that they make in this game based off of the enemy team's composition and what it allows. We're also going to dive into how you can be more aware of the game state in the round and instantly start making better decisions in your games of when to push and when to play passive. Take a listen. Hey, what's up? In this VOD, we're going to be taking a look at more decision-making and intel-based things in the game just because you are approaching more of a higher rank in the game. You're Plat 3, you're approaching Diamond and stuff like that, and you need to start basing your decisions that you make based around the information that you have in game. Your aim is really good, honestly. Like when I'm watching you, it seems like your aim is good, your communication is good with your team, but for the most part, it seems like you are struggling to kind of make good decisions within the round that is going to give your team a better positioning or better opportunities in the round. So take, for example, this first clip right here. We're going to be focusing on two major things. The first one is taking space. The second one is adapting your pathing or decision making based off of the enemies that you are playing against and their ultimates available. So walking in here right now on round 02, this is your first buy round. You're gonna scuff your dash a little bit. That's fine or whatever. We don't care too much about this entry. It looks like you guys shoot the wall down. You guys get the site for free. But what I want you to notice is that when you look at the map, you guys don't have a ton of space due to this harbor wall. Even with the smoke here, you have even less space. I know that your teammates are in main, so you can assume that you guys are connected right now. Oftentimes I refer to it as a tether that kind of pulls your teammates together. These guys are doing good in main right now. The smoke's here. Something you might consider is that sometimes people can walk up into the smoke and stuff, but for the most part, yeah, I just wanted to point out that you guys are kind of you're suffocated on site right now. So I really like that you come up here and you look for duels, because notice how you guys don't have any numbers advantage and you don't really have a ton of space. So in this regard, you're starting to think that it's okay, well, maybe this is not that great. We have sight, but we also didn't really play it for main, so there's going to be some potential issues in this round, right? But you're going to hold and you're going to kind of look for fights and stuff like that. I think that this is fine. But from this point, notice how you're kind of hiding. And once again, we see the second smoke on site. And I'm thinking, I got 3 teammates in main. I got 2 people who are smoked off on site. And they have 4 people alive, right? So if we start getting pushed here, this is going to be really bad for us. So I want to know what's happening right now. Do we need help? Where is everybody? What is going on, right? So you're holding this off angle, which I think is maybe okay, but you kind of want more information than anything right now, because I'm kind of worried people are going to be walking up on us. They're going to take duels. Your harbor dies, and you're going to be in a tight position, right? And there's a lot of other potential risks, because you're going to see what also happens, right? You lose 2 teammates in main, and right now, this game state doesn't look good. Now, you're going to get bailed out, but I just wanted to point out how nasty this looks. You're in a 3v4, so you don't have numbers. You lost a main control, right? And you don't have a ton of space on site because you guys are all bundled up in this one area. Right now, what easily could happen, 2 players come down here, 2 players come down here, and you guys are in a really bad position, right? Now, you are going to get bailed out. Like I said, your chamber's going to land a kill onto the spawn guy right here, and then your harbor is going to cascade here. But just to give more reference, it sounds like I'm just really pessimistic. But if your chamber lost that duel, you're in a 2v4 and you have no space at all. It's going to be a really tough win, right? So you kind of get bailed out that your chamber's kind of making plays right here. But for the most part, I just wanted to point out that this is how you process this, right? You look up at the map when you have downtime, and you just think about what needs to happen right now. What's the game state? You look up at the map, you look up the agents, and part of the reason that you don't really have this awareness right now, or what I would argue, is it kind of seems like your map is a little bit of an afterthought, and it's just because it's so small, right? So I wanted to kind of share with you the map settings that I recommend for all players. I always mention this. You can pause the video right here if you need. Look at these map settings, copy them. I'm going to mention this in pretty much every single coaching session just because I think that it's so important that you look at your map. Something to be noted, you are getting to a higher rank, so I'm just going to mention this. This minimap zoom, it's going to cut off some parts of your map at times, but I just prefer that it's just as large as possible. But if you go to 0.9, it should be just a little bit better. But for the most part, yeah, you should change your map settings just because you can't see anything. It doesn't need to be fixed, by the way. That was another thing. It's fixed or rotate. You could do rotate if you prefer it, but for the most part, you need to be able to see your map and you need to be thinking about it, because I just get the sense that you're not really thinking about it a whole bunch right now. So that's kind of going to be our first thing right there. it's not just sizing up your minimap. That's where to start. But you also need to be thinking about what you need to do based off of that information that you're getting. Do we need more space? Do we not need more space? Maybe you have like massive numbers of advantages of 5v2. Maybe you don't need to run into their spawn, right? These are things that you need to think about as you are approaching Diamond. You're trying to get into like Ascendant and stuff like that. So we're going to move into a different round right here, and we'll talk about more of the same. By the way, this is just one of the many sessions that we have posted on our website that you can find here. If you're looking for more content just like this, or you want to get your own gameplay reviewed, feel free to check out SkillCapped and we'll help you out. You can submit your VOD in our Discord and we'll take a look at it and help you improve. We even offer rank up insurance, meaning that if you don't improve, then you don't pay. If you're looking for the fastest way to climb in Valorant, be sure to check out SkillCapped using the link below. Other than that, let's get back into the VOD. So this is going to be another round where we're going to talk a little bit more about like the game state and like what your team needs. So we're going to take a gander over here at the map. You're going to land a really nice shot right here on this player. Little dead zone right there, sick. And you're going to land that kill, and then you guys are all chilling right here. So once again, we're just going to pause. We're going to look at the game state. 5v4, pretty sick. We got numbers advantage, so normally, what I'd say, rule of thumb, if your team is ahead in numbers, you play safe. If your team is behind in numbers, you play aggressive. But there are some other things that you're going to have to start factoring in, right? Now that you're approaching these higher ranks, it's a little bit, it's not less as much black and white, right? So you need to start thinking about it a little bit more. So looking at the map, you see our harbor is alone on site, and we have 4 people over here towards arcade. So what happens if our harbor crumbles right here, right? We all get stuck on this side of the map. Spike is playing it here, but it's not particularly playing it for 3 of you. And tower is such a small choke point. This isn't really looking too great, right? So what I'm thinking right now is that like I want to like cheat out like this fade is, right? And I want to fight this to make sure that nothing's going to happen. And you kind of do a little bit of this, right? You're kind of like jiggling and you're looking a little bit. But once you get caged off, you immediately like all this plan goes out the window. And what I'm thinking right now is that like even with this cage, I know that's scary to push through it, but immediately when your harbor dies, I'm thinking, ooh, this is bad, right? So we have 2 players in tower. We have 2 players right here. So your Phoenix says that he wants to flash, but the problem is that right now you're thinking, I can't capitalize on this flash. So you're going to come back tower. This is going to be your decision, right? And when you go back tower, look, again, this is 3 of you in tower. Basically, everybody's being funneled into this one choke point, and it's really not great. So I know that the omen's right here and stuff like that, and you end up backing up. But the reality is that you guys can pinch here. If you wanted to fight this, you definitely could with the Phoenix flash. Because when the Phoenix flash is here, it's going to blind like everybody in sight. Keep in mind, it'll also blind people like over here. But you also have the opportunity to make a play with this cage, is kind of what I wanted to point out. Where it's like, you guys don't have a ton of space, so you want to fight this. You want to pinch and you want to play together, because you need space right now. That's what you need. You don't need more people in tower. You don't need to rotate. You're not going to be able to stall on time, right? You guys need to fight this. So what I would have preferred to see is, like, say, rewind this a little bit. Okay, come back here. When this cage comes out, what I would like to see, even fighting with your harbor too, you could smoke this and you could take this space and you could try to like fight, right? You have 2 smokes available you can work with. You can also just smoke and get their attention. But when you end up running back over here towards your Phoenix, like, what are you going to do at the end of the day in the like tower? You got like 3 of you there. Your teammates are going to try to pinch here eventually, but it's just like you guys keep running back and forth. And I would really like to see you like coordinate a plan to fight it. Because like I said, right now, when I look at the game state, I'm thinking, man, we don't have a lot of space. This is kind of looking bad. You know, so what I'm trying to think is like, how can we get more space? How can we fight for this, right? And you're in a pretty decent position. I don't want to say it was optimal, but it's kind of like it's your only option, right? You coming back over here towards tower and putting 3 of you in tower, it's just not the move. And you're kind of like, you're faded and moving out, but like you guys ended up just like getting held out. The moment they tap this spike and you guys basically haven't like pushed through arcade or made any attempt for it, you're in a really bad position because they can just hold. They just look at these directions and they know that you're all over here and they just hold it, right? So that's kind of where that comes from. So we're going to continue in the game. We'll talk about more stuff like this. So I was going to propose something here just because I'm not sure if you do this very often, but I think that it's kind of like a telltale sign that maybe you're a little bit afraid to take space at times. So I just kind of wanted to promote this mostly for like limit testing. I don't think that this is necessarily the best decision in the world, right? So you see the deadlock right here. And normally, if you had like a good team comp, you'd have like a breach or something stunning for you. So as you approach like higher elo, this is going to be a lot more common. Where like you have breach players who are stunning here. If you don't have a breach, maybe you're like you do have a harbor. He can like cascade for you, and you guys can like scale up using that. But using some form of utility to take the space rather than just like running at him, right? But what I would recommend is when you see this deadlock, notice how you activate your dash, but instead instead of dashing at her, you're gonna run up and you're gonna try to take the space, and then you're gonna get walled off. And it's like now you have your dash available, but you dash into the wall. I think you end up dying here in a second. So although like this isn't the optimal decision because there are some risks posed right here, I want to promote the idea of like limit testing a little bit more for yourself because it seems like your mechanics are really good, and I think that you could like definitely push your limits just a bit more and play a little bit more aggressive. So when you see this deadlock, what I'm suggesting is rather than walking up and using your dash to like get away, use your dash to close this gap. This player's thinking, okay, I just spotted them, I'm gonna run away. The reason I say this isn't technically the correct decision is because this could be like a bait. She could have just jump peeked and then like there's gonna a player like ready to fight. But like even if that's the case, you closing this gap quickly can really catch these players off guard and you can land kills on them. Because notice, like I said, when you run up here, she's already running away. So you barely get here, like just not in time, and like it is possible that you could have landed this shot. But for the most part, if you had dashed up on this guy, you would have caught him with this ability out, barrier mesh. He would have been like ready to use his barrier mesh, and like you just basically you would have sat him down immediately, right? So that's basically what I wanted to mention. It's just that, like, I would definitely push your limits a little bit more and see like what space you can get away with taking, because a lot of this game is based off of timings. The timing that this deadlock has when he jump peaks is he thinks that nobody can close this gap very quickly on him, right? So you're going to catch that off guard and you're basically going to tell him like you don't know shit. When you close this gap and you like do this really quickly. This is why characters like Neon are really strong. This is why Jet combos really well with like Breach and stuff like that, because the Breach can stun and then the Jet can dash from far away. So you take positions where players thought they were safe initially and you kind of like use that against them, right, with your dash. We're going to move on. So now we're starting to get into the area where you need to really start thinking about like the enemy's team comp a little bit more, like their ultimates that they have available, right? So for example, if you look at the enemy team comp right now, I'm wondering like what you come up with. What do you think is going to be their strengths? What do you think their weaknesses are going to be? Particularly when I look at their team comp, what I'm noticing is their double sentinel. So I'm counting like basically like rolls and stuff like that is a good way to do it. I mean, like obviously keep in mind their abilities and stuff too. But when you see double sentinel, you can basically just assume it's going to be kind of difficult to like rush into these guys. Particularly with a Cypher and Deadlock, they're going to be placing a lot of their trips on site. So I'm going to start considering my pathing as Jet, since you're a Jet main, right? You're going to have to think about your pathing when you come into site with the Cypher tripwires and the Deadlock tripwires. So this is kind of going to be a problem for you in this game, especially. And I know that you try to adapt to it by like asking your Fade to like break tripwires with your Prowlers, right? But you can also just adapt your pathing if like that's not happening, right? So in this game, it seems like nobody's really assisting you on this entry. You're going to kind of walk up to help this or to like fight this Jet. But as you're approaching right here, notice you're going to use your dash. You're going to dash straight into sight, and I think you run directly into a tripwire, if I'm not mistaken this round. Cypher's on site, you hit the trip, you end up dying through the smoke, right? So this just sucks because it's like, man, you do this a couple of rounds throughout the game, so it's not just this round, right? We can go to a different round right here to showcase the exact same thing. So this is round 5-6 right here. You're going to be doing the exact same thing. And this basically signifies to me that you're not really thinking about like the enemy's team comp and how you can adapt to it as much as you probably should be and as much as you have to at the end of the day of this rank, right? So you dash in here into sight. You get hit by the deadlock trip. There's even a Cypher cage here. You hit a tripwire and you end up dying, right? So you can't assume that there's going to be like a deadlock and a Cypher here. That is a lot, right? But basically what I'm suggesting is like, if you're dealing with this issue where you're running into sight and like nobody's helping you, right? You're not getting the Fade Prowlers. You're not getting like your Phoenix ulti to like come and kill these trips or anything. Oftentimes like you hope like somebody like their paint shells or something from your razor, like just like anything to break these tripwires. But if you're not getting any of this, I got to start thinking, okay, how am I going to path to avoid these trips? Because you running in and dying isn't really going to get that much value. I want to preserve my life. So what I'm thinking instead is that maybe I could path off to the right here and I can make a play that way. So oftentimes what you'll see a lot of Jet players do is instead of dashing like straight into sight right here, what they do, can I go back a frame? Yeah, right here, is they'll dash here, right? You smoke here, you dash that way. And then this way you can path around this default box and you can help them take the site. You have the harbor wall to help you out right here too. Another thing you can do is like you can use your smoke. You can swing out this way and you can like kind of look this direction. You could potentially even consider pushing Canteen. That's definitely an option, right? Especially with the harbor, you can get like smokes like this maybe. You can ask them to like smoke deeper. That was pretty bad, but you can do something like this maybe. And you can take more space. You can take generator. You can fight that. So if you feel like trips are being an issue and you're running into these frequently and you're not really trusting your teammates to break them, this is an option for you. Consider your pathing and consider what you could be doing instead. Another thing you could do maybe is you go arcade and you come in this way. Something I do a lot on Duelist, like as Yoru. If I'm seeing that they have these tripwires and I'm running into sight and I don't like this, what I might do is I'll go arcade and I'll push spawn like this, right? And you can get really fast timings like this when you swing arcade. If you don't see any player holding this, oftentimes at high ranks, people like kind of peek this on top of generator, or maybe they'll peek like canteen like this or something. What you could do is you could like run in here and you're like, I'm gonna peek these guys spawn real fast, right? And it's not necessarily the best thing in the world all of the time, but it's a very aggressive play that you can make if you find that they're just turtling on site. If they're turtling on site, you pick up on the rotates and you just try to kill those players instead. And there are other ways that you can win the game like that, right? You don't need to run directly into site and die to tripwires every single round for your teammates. You can find other options within the round if you understand how these players are going to play. But to do that, you need to kind of understand the team comps and like what these players are like, what they want to do. So what I would suggest for you, especially, it seems like you're really good at the game. Like I said, it seems you're approaching plat, or you're plat 3, you're approaching diamond, maybe approaching ascendant in the future here. What I would start seeing is that like maybe it's a good idea for you to start learning other agents. Not like full time. I still think that you should be a jet main. It seems like your jet is really good. It seems like your op is really good. But just playing like a little bit of Cypher, or playing like a little bit of like controller, and just seeing what these agents are good at and what they want to do in the rounds. Because the more you play these agents, the more you'll realize like, hey, this is what I would do. I had a game with one of my friends the other day. By the way, I'm not really a jet player, but like I can tell you how like a duelist thinks. I play a lot of like Yoru and stuff like that. But I also play Astra. I play Gecko. I was picking up Deadlock recently just so I could figure out what Deadlock's good at. And it's good to think about these things because you'll figure out what they want to do. So the other day I was playing a game with one of my duos, and he's a jet player. I'm not really a jet player, but I noticed that their jet was one off of her knives, right? And I mentioned that I was like, okay, well, Jet's one off knives, so she's probably going to like try to get knives this round. Maybe we can like make a play off of that. And what we ended up doing is he said, if I were Jet right now, I would try to grab knives on drop because it's the easiest place to get them knives, right? So what we did is we came over here. I was playing breach. I stunned it. He fought it. We killed the Jet. We got a free kill, right? So once you start playing these agents and you know what they want, you can start kind of adapting around it. So we're going to go to another round where you kind of get screwed by this. It's not just entering onto site and pathing. There's other things that happen in this game that kind of signifies that maybe you're not thinking about what these other agents want to do in the round, right? So in this round, it is 7-9, and you are going to be doing a little bit of mid-rounding right here. Your Phoenix is going to end up finding the spike over towards drop, and you're going to end up rotating over there. This is kind of just a lot of nothing right here, so I'm actually going to skip forward. Hold on. So you get a kill onto the Jet. This is sick. And your Phoenix has spike. This is sick, right? But when we rotate over, you're going to notice you don't really look at the ultimates available, and their enemy Omen has ultimate. So you're going to start doing this a lot more in these rounds. Right now, you're rotating. You have your knife out. What I'm thinking, what's the game state, right? I'm looking up at the map. I know that spike's over here. What do they got? They got ultimates available. Okay, Omen ulti can be used to pick up the spike, so he's definitely going to do that, right? He's not stupid at this rank. This is like the #1 way to use Omen ultimate right now because like rotating, oftentimes you're not going to get the opportunities to use it. But right here, spike's down. This is my job. My time to shine. That's what an Omen player is thinking right now, right? So you come over here, and this is going to be like worst case scenario what happens to you guys, right? So when he picks up the ultimate, first of all, even if they had gone at B, not really optimal, right? I kind of like the idea of you scaling up, and I like your communication with your teammate right here. You're like, hey, can you help me get into this position? I think that's cool. But you guys completely overlook the Omen ultimate, which just puts you in such a bad position. And like I said, at lower ranks, maybe this is enough to win you the round. But as you start to approach these higher ranks, this is something where it's like, oh man, we get really screwed over by this. So I know their deadlock is going to rotate at a ridiculous timing, but you have to think about like what you could have adapted, right? I would have done the exact same thing at this point that you would have done. If I was in this position, I would have tried to like run in here and like smoke and like try to get into sight, right? Because the deadlock is separated from her teammate. It's playing today. This is really smart. This is a good play, right? The deadlock rotate comes in way faster than even I would have expected. I didn't think that she would be here either. But the idea is that like you guys are in such a bad position right now. This is the worst case scenario that could have happened in this round is that you guys are in drop and you have to come out now and you're in this 2v2, right? And now there's like this crossfire that we just didn't expect. Like this is worst case scenario. And it all comes down to the fact that you guys just assumed that like this was a given because you didn't realize that they had Omen ultimate. So if you start looking up at like the abilities and like the ultimates that are available and like what agents want to do, you could start thinking, okay, this spike is lost, right? It's right here. Sick. We could play for it. But the reality is that like they're going to get it, right? They're going to ulti it. So when I start thinking about what is their next step, how can I get ahead of what they want to do? Because if you know what they want to do, then you can easily outplay them because you're like, okay, well, if they want to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to hang out. I'm going to expect the Omen to probably just like walk in here. He's going to think that we're holding the spike or something like that, right? Or maybe we stay over here and we just like hold this angle and we end up picking up the kill on a deadlock when she's rotating over. That's also an option, right? So like it's okay to have one player watch this or something if you really wanted to, but like you could be doing something else and just like looking for a play, like looking for like where are they going to go? Honestly, I probably would have expected them to go B based off the deadlock's positioning, right? But because they ended up going A, like if you were in this position to like find this Omen and actually get a kill on him, notice how like if you're hanging out over here towards sight and the Omen plants the spike, you don't have to worry about this deadlock's rotation coming in time because it just can't. You're here. Like you can fight this Omen, you can get the defuse, and you can win the round. So it's not just this round, right? There's other rounds where this happens as well. So here's a round where you're coming in for a 2v4 retake, which admittedly is not going to be super easy, but you do have your operator, and like I said, it seems like you're pretty snazzy with this operator. So you go for this pick right here, you're going to end up landing a kill into the enemy deadlock. This is sick. Their Raze just popped her ultimate, though. And what is the Raze going to do if she has her ultimate? She just figured out where you were. You took first contact. She's probably going to be looking towards you. Maybe it's like, maybe you can't assume that she's going to fire it here like right now. But for the most part, you just got her attention. So what I'm doing is I'm hiding, right? Because I want to wait out this ultimate. I can't exactly rush in versus this rocket, and you're going to end up dying to the rocket, and that just sucks, right? You could have definitely avoided this by just backing up. But for the most part, it's just, the problem is that she has her ultimate. What's she going to do? She's looking for a player to ult right now, and you are the first person to make noise. So they don't know where your Phoenix is. They know where you are, though, right? So she's probably going to be gearing more up towards, maybe if she doesn't fire it here, maybe she just runs up here and she just pushes you through the smoke and she kills you with it, right? There's a lot of options for her that she might like look to do, but for the most part, you just need to be adapting to what these players are doing. Like if you played a little bit more Raze, you might be thinking, oh yeah, like if I were Raze right now, I would be looking at me trying to ult me, right? So these are things where you just need to start considering the enemy's team comp and like what their abilities are available and what they want to be doing in the round. Because once you start thinking about what they're doing, you could start reading minds is basically the point, right? You could start thinking, okay, this is what this person wants to do right now, so this is how we can adapt to it. So for example, say they have a Killjoy, right? And it's like they have Killjoy ultimate available. What are they going to do? They're going to use Killjoy ulti in sewers. How can we deal with that? What are options for us to deal with this? Well, maybe we push arcade and we try to collapse on sewers and we try to go underneath and like mess these guys up. This is a common tactic because a lot of Killjoys, they'll just run through B main, they'll go under and they'll ult. So if you push arcade, they oftentimes won't even get the comps from their teammates. You'll be lower in 2 seconds in sewers and you'll just be killing them, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of adapt to this. Maybe they have breach ultimate, right? Maybe they want to breach ult here. We do the same thing. Or we can fight B main because they want to breach ult or something like that, right? There are a lot of options for you. There are a lot of options once you start looking at the enemies, what they have available, what tools or resources they have. You can start making plays to adjust to it. And notice how both of these things that I'm touching on right here, they both come down to information. Like I said earlier at the VOD, or at the beginning of it, I think that you are in the game state right now where you need to be focusing more on the information that you have and how you can make decisions based off of that info. What is the correct decision based off this information? So for again, right here, notice how on site we have this tripwire on flank. So like you're basically a glorified tripwire right now backing up. So you're kind of baiting your team in some regards, right? But you also use your harbor wall to block off canteen and to block off generator. And you have teammates, you're in like pretty decent spots. But what I would like to see from you, instead of like running back here towards spawn and covering flank, which is what this tripwire is already doing, is maybe taking space on this harbor wall and just getting into the corner. I know it's a 5v4, so like maybe you want to play safer, you don't want to play as aggressive. But like this wall right here is basically like, it's free space, right? So you're just giving up the space to them at the end of the day. And you can get up into generator and you can make it like very difficult for the exit. But by backing up right here, notice how this round's going to get a lot dicier than you wanted it to. So you just gave up all the space for free. And now your Harbor is going to take a duel, and I think he dies first, and then your Chamber's probably going to die, and then your Phoenix is going to die, and then your Fade is going to die. And it's just like, once all your teammates just die on site, they lose their ones. A lot of that just has to do with like the fact that you came back towards main, and you're kind of just baiting everybody, right? You're even shooting at your Chamber for whatever reason. I don't know if you like thought there was like a tripwire or something, but you're probably just trolling. Harbor, or he's gonna die in nade. Now your teammate dies. Look at that. You were in a 5v4. Now you're in a 1v2, and you didn't do anything to help your team in this scenario. So like that's part of the reason that you ended up in a 1v2 is because like you didn't do anything, right? But you're gonna end up winning this 1v2, and I think it's fine. I think you played this 1v2 well for what it's worth, right? The Raze rocket comes in. You kind of like stop making noise. You're gonna walk out. You're gonna kill the spike diffuser. I like the updraft at the end of it. I probably don't hold this angle because if she swings you and she one taps you, she probably gets the diffuse anyway. But what you could do is you can hide, and then when she goes for the tap, that's when you swing, or you can use your updraft to get her off. But for the most part, yeah, you played it. I think you played it okay in the 1v2. But you're not really thinking about the game state, and you're not really thinking about what your team needs, or what you can do for your team to like help them out. So as duelists, big thing, you got to think about taking space, right? Is it time for me to take space? Is it not time for me to take space? Is it time for me to play safe? It seems like that's something that you're not really very good at right now, and I think that it's hurting you. So the only way to do that, you got to size up your minimap. You got to look at your map. You got to think about what makes the most sense. Like, when I look at the map, do I feel suffocated? Do I feel like I don't have enough space on the map? Do I feel like our team is all in the same spot, or do I feel like we're chilling, right? Are we chilling? We have enough space, so they don't have a ton of people to like kind of break this up. That's something you got to start considering. This last round that I wanted to look at was the last round of the game. I just wanted to comment on how our man in double overtime greeds for the skin. What are you doing? There's 4 people here. They're coming in for the retake. You have a Vandal. It has all of its bullets. What are you doing? But you end up coming up with a sick clip here, so I'll showcase it. But like, absolutely not the best. Like, don't do that. But good kills, good win right here. But yeah, you need more information. I think that you're gonna be the biggest thing holding you back. Your comms seem pretty decent. It seems like you're working with your team. It seems like you got a decent mental at the very least. Like you're kind of complaining about people opening door on you, I noticed. But for the most part, it seems like you're like really good at the game. So what I would start doing is just start thinking about the game state a little bit more. Start thinking about what makes the most sense. What do we need to do? Try other agents and just figure out like what do these agents want in these rounds? What do they want to do? What abilities are good to combo with like other abilities? What am I going to get screwed over in this round? They have their ultimates. Like what are they going to do to kind of like mess me up? And how can I adapt to that? Once you start thinking about these things a little bit more, your decisions that you make are just gonna they're gonna feel a lot better. They're gonna feel a lot more rewarding because you're basically reading minds at that point. A lot of players, this game's not that complicated in the regard of like people are really predictable. When they have Omen ultimate available, they're gonna ult for the spike. When I have Raze ult available, I'm probably gonna use it to entry. If Killjoy ult's available, probably gonna use a B, right? Once you start realizing like what these agents like to do and you start thinking about it a little bit more, you can counteract it really easily. So that's gonna be kind of your base notes right there. The easiest ways to do this, size up your minimap first. If you're not doing anything, if you're not taking gunfights in the round, look up the map, just see what's going on, right? And then assess at the very beginning of the game, I would make a note to do this every single game because even I forget it sometimes still. You look up the team comp and you just think, okay, well, what do I need to do off of this team comp? What are they going to be strong at? What are they going to be weak at? Because once you start assessing this, then you'll know exactly how you want to approach the game, right? So this is going to be my biggest advice for you. It seems like you're really good, but for the most part, hope this is helpful, man. Remember, if you're looking for more of this content, you can find dozens of VODs just like this one on our website where we coach players just like you. Site subscribers can also get their own VOD looked at by submitting a replay in our Discord, where we'll analyze your gameplay and tell you exactly what you need to do to start climbing. As we mentioned earlier, this is all backed by rank up insurance, meaning that if you don't climb, then you don't pay. We do this because we care about your improvement and we want to see our students climb. For starters, we recommend checking out our brand new Spider Method course that will teach you an actionable method to start improving your mechanics. In no time, we'll have you climbing all the way to Diamond with just a couple of simple steps. Check it out today and we'll see you there.